Eric Olson with Smart Pot, the original fabric growing container. Welcome back to the Growing Revolution Smart Potcast. And our guest this week is Jassem Bastaki. He was on with us in season 1. And he contacted me recently because he's very concerned about the decline in overall health that he's seeing in his patients in his day job. And he is in Kuwait, by the way, and he wanted to talk about how the COVID lockdowns have negatively affected our overall health, and how we might be able to recover from those negative impacts. So, Jassem, good to see you, and welcome back to the podcast.
Good to see you too, Eric, and I'm so happy to be back. Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
of
Thanks
course.
for
Well,
accepting the
in season 2, I was really hoping to get more into kind of like issues episodes, and more kind of in depth topics. And I feel like this is a great topic to talk about because it talks about gardening, health, all the things that we're kind of advocates for, you and me both. So this should be a good interview. So could you please refresh folks on what you do in the medical field and what you're seeing?
All right, so a lot of you guys know me to be part of Sustainable Organic Kuwait, an organic agriculture company. We source all that you need to get growing, either at home or in the farm. And if you're going towards the organic living soil type growing, um, with more regenerative, earth regenerative practices. What I actually do uh, in the medical field, I am a pathologist. And a lot of people know that a pathologist is stuck in the lab looking under the microscope at very, very, very tiny things in tissue. But on top of being in the lab, I'm also in the clinic. I hate saying this, but kind of what I do in the clinic and with also with the lab work, correlating the two, is very similar to the show House MD, if you're familiar with that show. Except that the cases that I see and the patients that present to me have diseases or issues or lesions or even more systemic diseases, but manifestations in the head and neck region. Um, and dude, more recently, I'm seeing things that really uh, robbed me from my sleep at night. I'm seeing an increase in the number of um, chronic diseases, immunologic diseases, autoimmune diseases, and also cancers. I'm seeing an increase in number. I'm seeing increase in the complexity, and I'm definitely seeing a pattern that does not fit any of the textbooks we studied to come into this field. So basically, disease is just doing its own thing right now. And I got to thinking. I spent plenty of time because I'm not paying attention to what's happening in the world with all the chaos and COVID and Trump and all of this. I was really trying to pay attention and think about why this is happening. Um, I feel I feel there's so many factors as to why this is happening, but uh, there are specific factors, let's say, influenced by the drastic uh, lifestyle change that we all had because of COVID. COVID came and policies uh, made us stuck at home. We had to be masked. We had to constantly disinfect ourselves. We had to isolate ourselves and distance ourselves from other humans and other creatures and the outer world, which means we also distance ourselves from all the natural and healthy probiotics that we're supposed to uptake into our systems on daily basis. We lose these probiotics because of our lifestyle, what we eat, what we drink, what we smoke, how we sleep, how we wake up, how we live our day. Um, Now, being stuck at home, masking ourselves, constantly disinfecting ourselves, we had a decline in the number of probiotics that we're uptaking, and then you add to that our lifestyle and what we eat and what we do, uh, is very detrimental to the whatever natural probiotics we have in our bodies because we got them from our mothers or because we had a nice hike at the forest or something. That's naturally declining. Plus, you isolate yourself and then you get a total decline. Now, here's the issue. Uh, we know that our genetic material, which dictates who we are and how our bodies function, is also augmented by the tens and tens of folds of the genetic material of all these probiotics living on us. So, for example, if I have 10 million genes, for example, just a number out there, because of the probiotics on me, I probably have 100 million or maybe more than that genes that can be used for me to function. If I lose these microbes that live on me, I also lose the function that they provide for me. Um, that's one issue. Um, Another issue is uh, habitually. I'm sorry, even before getting to this, the amount of stress that we lived, all the changes, it, it took a big toll on our mind. And you know, this is the command center for the rest of the body. This controls your hormones, it controls everything. It's not just your happiness and your sadness and your cravings. It controls everything. If you have a dysfunction here, because your mind is just racing, thinking about all that you're worried about, then that dysfunction is also going to reflect in your immunity, it's going to reflect in the way you digest your food. So we're seeing a lot of people unable to digest food. We're seeing people that are thinner than me, but they have diabetes symptoms. Uh, Everything that we're seeing is just, uh, for somebody who's aware, somebody who's paying attention to what's happening, it tells you that the future is really scary. If we don't do something about this, it's only going to get worse where we start seeing malignancies in our children. And scary enough, I'm already seeing this. That the malignancies that I used to get in really, really, really older people, now I'm getting in teenagers, people in their 20s and early 30s. And that's really
Yeah.
scary. Now, leave that aside, what happened here because of the stress associated with COVID, um, the isolation and the disinfection and all of this, and how it affected our probiotics, our diet, our diet changed tremendously during COVID. We were ordering food left and right instead of cooking healthy food. We were ordering food left and right. Now, a lot of people already had this lifestyle. They're living in an urban life setting, super busy, working in downtown, getting out of work, grabbing a pizza here. That's fine, but there was also physical activity associated with this bad food. Now, during COVID, there was no physical activity. A lot of people were stuck at home for
Mhm.
months, unable to move. Uh, so all of this, let's call it drastic lifestyle change that happened because of COVID. It was too fast and too complex for our epigenetics to take care of it. What's for those who don't know what epigenetics is? Say you have, again, same example. Say you have 10 million genes. Not all of them are functional. Not all of them are expressed in making proteins and making enzymes. A lot of them are hidden, suppressed, and they resurface due to environmental triggers, due to external forces that call for these genes to resurface. Now, if these changes happen so drastically, your body's not going to keep up with this. It's going to be too difficult. Now, this is too simplified, but the process is a lot more complex than this. Uh, Now, here's the worst. 2 years of a lot of stress. Now the lockdown is over. People are able to get out and mix with each other. Unfortunately, Eric, what we're seeing, behaviorally speaking, a lot of people are seeking satisfaction and self-fulfillment and feeling better. Now remember, 2 years of a lot of stress, 2 years of lack of love, lack of affection, lack of human communication, and even like the mere physical touch. Hey, how you doing? High five or fist bump. Even that was rare for a lot of people. Unfortunately, when people got out, behaviorally speaking, we're seeing a lot of bad behavior associated with bad sexual activities that we're seeing resurface of a lot of diseases that we're not used to seeing. This is not just in Kuwait, this is also in the United States, and I have colleagues in the States. We're all discussing this, but we're seeing a surge in the syphilis cases.
Wow.
Now, we don't hear about syphilis, right?
No.
We don't normally hear about it. But when you're at a time that you're seeing, let's say, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cases within a short period of time, right after COVID, and then if you compare that to before COVID, I saw only one case in a like a 9, 10 year period. Before COVID, I saw one case in a 9 to 10 year period. After COVID, in 2 to 3 months, as of today, I think we diagnosed the eighth or ninth case.
Wow.
So all of these changes, the behavioral changes, the lifestyle changes, they affected our health tremendously, and they will keep affecting our health in a very bad way. And it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up and perhaps adapt uh, a lifestyle that is healthy, that's green, that can do all of this that we need, just in one thing maybe. Basically, adopt a simple lifestyle change that will give you a lot for that little bit of change. I truly believe, especially for those people living in urban settings, that growing your own food at home will do a lot of
Yeah.
this. First, it'll give you a chance to get out of the house, get out in nature. If you live in an urbanized setting and you don't have the forests, you don't have all of this, but you're composting your own compost, I promise you, and then research also showed that you can introduce to your body the same microbes that you would get from taking a hike in the forest just by composting your own waste at home.
Now, let me
So
ask you,
composting,
now would that be you're obtaining these microbes just from kind of like they're in the air or on your hands and then they, get into your body? How is that working?
microbes are everywhere. Microbes are living on the waste that you dump in your compost sack. Microbes are in the air. Microbes are in the water that you use to hydrate your compost. They are in the additions, the additives that you add. If you're collecting any dry leaves that are around your house, they're just covered with microbe spores.
Makes sense.
Basically, microbes are everywhere. And when you grow microbes in a specific controlled environment, like a compost sack, a compost pile, those microbes will thrive and they will attract more microbes. They will attract bugs. The insects will come in to eat some of the microbes, eat some of the decaying matter, but also introduce their own microbes that they get from somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else, from the sewage, from your bathroom, from somewhere else. Basically, the compost sack attracts a lot of life to it, just like your biodiverse garden attracting life to it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Um, so, how much of an increase in disease are you seeing, and who is it affecting, and how? Is it like the young, the old, men, women? Just because like you're saying, it seems like the decline in overall health can be from so many sources, like over disinfection, wearing a mask for, more than a few seconds in a day. And then we haven't even talked about negative side effects from the COVID shots, which is a controversial topic in and of itself. So, what are you seeing it just across the board disease?
I'm seeing an increase, like I said, increase in the number and the quality. Uh, the complexity of the disease is so bad that on regular basis I used to cover two hospitals, my hospital and then a nearby hospital, like a walking distance, 10 minutes. Now it's very common for me to stop at five different hospitals in Kuwait in one day because there's something complex in every hospital. The cases are uh, I can't sleep at night because of the age specifically. Um, Cancer is starting to show up in a lot younger patients than we're expecting. Like I'm saying, cancer and disease in general does not fit the pattern we know of from
Yeah.
books.
Yeah. Pediatric cancer used to be, super rare. So yeah, for kids to be having cancer issues and then also cardiac issues we've been seeing in the news just is mind blowing and disturbing to me. Now, I guess getting into COVID, have you dealt with COVID personally? Like, have you had a COVID infection and like, did you have a treatment regimen that you did for that, or what? What's your experience personally with COVID?
Uh, I don't think I got the infection that I know of.
Okay.
I made sure just because I mix, not very frequently, but frequent enough. I mix with very, very, very sick patients that I don't want to be the source of infection to them. That's why even to this day I still protect myself and keep a distance and wear a mask. Uh, and that happened because I lost my own uncle, uh, who was diagnosed with cancer and passed from COVID before having the chance to get his treatment. So I don't want to be the person to cause pain to family for losing a family member. Uh, all of my siblings, some of my kids got the infection. It wasn't too bad. My business partner and my best friend from high school, he got the infection. It was really bad. He was in the hospital for 2 months, I believe, for 2 months, and maybe about a month or 3 weeks of those he was in the ICU. Uh, I did lose a couple colleagues to COVID, uh, and some family members, older ones like grandparents, who got really, really sick with it. But that's about it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think my whole family got it basically the February before the lockdown started. And back then, there wasn't even a test for it, but we had all of the symptoms. So I just kind of assumed that's what we had. And yeah, I felt like I was going to die for, one night. But then after that, it really improved for me. So hopefully I'm a healthy enough guy that that's kind of what helped to bounce me back. Now let's get back into good fun things. You mentioned you wanted to talk specifically about gardening in relation to various ways to get healthy. um, what are some of the health benefits to gardening that are maybe less obvious? Like you had mentioned the microbials that they're invisible. We don't see them visually. Is there anything else that is going to positively affect our health with gardening?
Oh, dude, everything about growing your own food everything is gonna be better for you. It saves you money when you grow your own food, and you can call it organic, you can call it regenerative without having to pay the prime buck for it. Nutritionally speaking, it'll be better. Um, taste, taste and shelf life will also be better. You can control the size to your liking. You don't have to get a cucumber I can't show it in the screen. That big and also bitter with thick skin. You can get a tender cucumber that you can just snack on in the garden. That's one thing. The microbes, the diversity in microbes that you can ingest and get on your body. I don't have it here anymore. Do you kind of see like a pale spot here?
Okay.
Anyway, I had a skin condition here that I treated it with my own soil. I knew what the issue was. I knew that there was a fungal infection there, and that fungal infection was caused by a nerve issue in that location. So why put antifungal when I can give it diversity? So I just grabbed some of my soil and I rubbed it on it twice and I treated that area. So basically the biodiversity that you get from your soil that you grow, especially if you grow with living soil, it's going to be amazing. You're not going to have sinus issues. You're not going to have all these infections that we get regularly. And a lot of people are complaining about allergies after COVID. Even people who never had allergies before COVID are now complaining about allergies before COVID. Well, if you're out in nature, even if you're in an urban setting in a city living, if you have a little haven that you created for yourself that you built, I don't have a garden, but I have a rooftop. And if you look at my rooftop now, it's like a mini forest. Uh, that will give me the microbes that I want. That'll give me the green colors that my eyes have to see, and also my brain has to sense. For your own sanity, you have to on regular basis see a lot of green and see a lot of blue. Those two colors, like water and sky and forests, are very calming for your mind and your body. So you actually need to see them. Creating them will means that you can see it. Getting out and doing something productive. The fact that you have to be patient for that tiny sprout to get bigger before you transplant it. In a time of smartphones, we are not too smart anymore.
Or patient.
Smartphones are huge, yeah, or patient, yeah. Smartphones are a huge distraction for us. And we're used to constantly seeing something new, something exciting, something. And if you don't have that, the neurotransmitters in your brain will feel lonely. And that's exactly what an addict will feel. An addict needs that. Similarly, your brain and your body needs that fast and continuous and repeated excitement. If you don't get it, then you're feeling off, you're
You're
feeling
not getting that
anxious.
dopamine
But
hit,
when you
right?
get, yeah, but now when you grow and then slowly become more patient, then you're going to treat that issue. You're going to treat the lack of patience. You're going to treat the hyperactivity. Uh, a lot of my followers on Instagram, I used to chat with them or discuss some gardening issues, and they were so hyper that they can't say one sentence very clearly. They would stutter, and I can tell they're stuttering because their mind is going faster than their tongue can speak. After 2 years, now you should watch them present something on their social platform, or you should listen to them. So calm and collected and speak very slowly and enunciate and like that. Uh, that's a change in somebody's behavior, and it's also a change in somebody's wiring in their brain.
Makes sense.
Now, you don't get that. You don't get that unless you're in this kind of positive environment that can slow you down and calm you down a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah. I think a gardener always has, their eye on the present, but then also on the future in the hopes that, what the hard work they're putting in today will lead to success in the future. And we know that it doesn't always work that way. Mother Nature has a way of, changing our plans. But yeah, to plant a garden is to naturally be optimistic about the future.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Um, and about that, about optimism, I had a lot of followers. young gardeners that used to frustrate so badly with just a tiny pest on their plants or a little wind that might have tilted the stem a little or something. Now it's the opposite. If an insect hits their plant, they'll be like, ah, thank God. I was able to feed a creature. I was able to feed a living being. And a lot of people started to shift their mindset from being selfish, it's mine, it's my plant, it's my garden, to being so generous that they don't even care if a wind blows their plant away. Oh, at least that plant built my soil. At least that plant helped build the soil structure or fed the microbes in the
Yeah.
soil.
The power of positive thinking. Like you said, the mind kind of controls everything else from there on. But if you don't have a good positive mindset, everything will just be negative from there on out.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Now also on top of, in addition to gardening and growing your own food and composting your waste, also fermenting. Fermenting like sauerkraut, fermenting foods and consuming them is also a must. Is also a must because you need specific microbes to help you digest specific foods that really weren't available to humans back in the
Now,
day.
why
The
is it
foods that we
why is it that fermented foods are so good for our digestive system?
because it gives you biomass and biodiversity very fast and repeatedly. But not just that, there are specific microbes that are able to digest food that you eat. So, for example, people who have type 2 diabetes, or let's say even pre-diabetes, let's say insulin resistance, if they consume kombucha, they will they will see a lot of improvements. Because when you ferment kombucha, you're growing microbes on simple sugars that you have in the kitchen that you yourself consume also.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why you have diabetes is because your microbes aren't able to keep up with all the enzymes that you need to break down the sugars and also process them and also utilize them. So they get stuck in you and you have issues with them. And not just diabetes and sugar. A lot of the food that we eat, when we digest it, if it's not digested completely, you're going to have a lot of waste, a lot of byproducts, some of which you may be allergic to, it may be toxic to you, may not be toxic to your brother, but specifically to you. So growing microbes in the kitchen on foods that you normally consume is good because it gives you the microbes that can help you digest those
Mm-hmm.
foods. So you get the kombucha that has a lot of sugars and whatever, plus all the teas and fruits. So a lot of benefits, plus specific microbes that can help digest and utilize sugars. And then people that are lactose intolerant, why are they lactose intolerant? I mean, we are born and we breastfeed or we drink the formula, we drink milk. We don't have issues. But then later in life we have that issue. Why? It's because we lack the lactobacilli that are able to digest and break down the lactose sugar. So the lactose sugar reaches an area where you don't have the good microbes to digest it, and it can be partially digested or digested by other microbes and that release a lot of gases and you know the end of that
Mm-hmm.
story. So if you ferment your own milk and if you ferment you make that kefir or kefir sour
Love
buttermilk,
that stuff.
and basically you're I love it too. Actually, if I stop drinking that for 2 3 days by forgetting, I know that I forgot. My body will tell me that something is wrong. I need to go back to consuming the kefir. But anyway, you consume that kefir, uh, you will introduce to your body the microbes that will help digest the lactose. But also remember that milk has a lot of proteins and has some other carbs. So the kefir microbes will also help you break down the proteins. So for those people that usually have joint issues after eating a meaty meal, a big fat steak, try having a quarter glass of kefir or a half a cup of kefir and see if you feel better a half hour
Yeah.
later.
Would you say before you eat you should be consuming the kefir, or just at some point in the day, or when's the best time to take that?
Ferments in general, you consume for microbes in general. You want to ingest them at two different times, either on an empty stomach for just general inoculation, or with a meal to help digest that meal. Now the kombucha and the kefir, both are very acidic media, very acidic environment. So the microbes in them are able to handle that acidity. So if you consume these products with your meal, the acid in your stomach is not going to bother them too much.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And also a lot of the Eastern Europeans, Germans, they love eating sauerkraut with their meat. You ever wonder why? It's the same
Yeah.
microbes. It's the same microbes to help digest the meat. I'm assuming that they realized with time, with history, that every time they ate that sauerkraut uh, with a kibasi, they didn't have as much bloating. So it was
Yeah.
helpful.
They didn't necessarily know the science behind it. They just knew the cause and effect, which is essentially science. Makes sense. So you're talking about fermented foods. Are there any other supplements that you take or recommend for a healthier lifestyle?
Uh, I do take prebiotics because because diversity of food and fibers or intaking diversity of foods and fibers for me is a little tough, especially during the summer when I'm not growing my own food. I try my best to supplement the fibers with quote unquote prebiotics. They call them prebiotics. These are the foods, just like with the Great White product, how they have the mycochum to go
Mm-hmm.
with it to feed the microbes. It's the same thing. These prebiotics are foods for your microbes, but certain foods will promote the growth of certain microbes. So I try to get a diversity of these prebiotics. And they're usually different fibers, different soluble and insoluble fibers, either in a capsule form or in a powder form that I mix with my shakes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've really been into prebiotic products, but I probably should look into that for the. I don't know. It can't help my, or it can't hurt my overall health to be taking these things that we know are
They're just
beneficial for our
fibers.
digestive system, which controls, just about it. Without a properly functioning digestive system, you're not going to be a properly functioning person, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
this has been a really, I don't know, eye opening conversation. And a lot of the topics that we've discussed are things that, maybe a lot of us already knew about, but maybe just didn't know how they all fit together in the total human package. So, this has been really a good conversation for me, and hopefully for anyone else that's been listening. Can you remind folks where they can find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram on our account sustainable underscore organic underscore Q8 for Kuwait, or there it is. Um, there's other platforms that we're on, but we're mostly active on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, anyone in the Middle East definitely needs to check out his account. He does a lot of great content in Arabic, easy to understand if you're not an English speaker, but he does a lot of English content as well. And it's always cool to get perspectives from gardeners all around the world just to see, what they're dealing with and how it might be similar or not similar to what you're dealing with. So, Jasm, it's always great to speak with you, and I wanted to thank you for joining us on the Growing Revolution.
Eric, thank you so much for having me and for giving me a chance to put this message out there. I really, really, really hope that uh, us together can make an impact on people's health and also in adapting a new and better lifestyle, greener lifestyle for them and for
Yeah.
Earth.
Well, that's what we're here for. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.